This is The Strategist, episode 4022. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Shannon Phillips, Stephen Carter. Hello, friends. How are you?
I'm having a great day. How are you, Zane?
Well, I'm doing excellent, Carter. I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Yeah, you're in the you're working for the NDP in Manitoba, is what I heard.
Is that what you're telling people now? Oh, excellent.
That's what I'm telling people. Yeah, because I'm
here
working
to
for the
defeat the
PCs in
Epstein
Manitoba.
class. That's what I've heard. I'm here to defeat the Epstein class.
I am
Carter.
the Epstein class, apparently. No, that's
Are you
probably
the
not a
Epstein
good
class?
thing to say.
No, I wouldn't take ownership of that.
Jesus.
No. Okay,
But that private jet.
Let's just flag minute 30, second 35. I was going to say second 35 for the Manitoba New Democrat Caucus. And by the way, I'm also issuing my resignation. Turns out they don't need my help. They've got this podcast with the longest
That's
rope
right.
that Stephen Carter takes.
That's
to
right.
Just hang himself with. Yes, Shannon, you were saying.
Well, I mean, I can't remember, actually.
Fine. Good. Stephen
The
Carter.
question was,
I'm
how
part
are you
of the
doing?
Epstein
And you
class.
can't remember. This is
Sorry, the question was, how are you doing? And your answer was, I'm part of the Epstein class.
there was a turn in there somewhere. I don't know.
It was not a turn.
There was a
literally
turn. You
a
twisted it
two-step
around.
process.
You
Twisted
veered out
my
of your
words against me.
lane, Carter.
Yeah, you really did.
Oh, I don't know what's happening in the world.
No,
What's
I
happening
remember
in
what
this
it
world?
was. I was going to say, the private jets that Carter's been on, the many private jets, all the time.
Many private jets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many
So,
private jets.
Maybe that puts you in a certain class of people. I don't know. PLU 4022 is a sweet and crunchy mid-season green seedless grape, offering a well-balanced
those.
eating experience and large berries.
Way to bury the punchline. After all those
Trying to get Carter out
discussions,
of
I'm
the
like, what
fucking
is it?
ditch.
What fruit is it? Oh, it's a grape. Okay, there you go. At the end, we realize it's a grape.
Sounds
Yeah, no,
delicious.
that's good. Thank you for that fruit talk, Shannon. Okay, I want to spend the majority of the time on this podcast talking about what happened this weekend in Winnipeg with the NDP convention that happened here in Manitoba. Before we get there, we recorded last on Friday, right? Is that right? Talking about
Yeah. All the way back in Friday.
I have been thinking about our conversation aggressively, often since Friday. This is a conversation we had about the majority report and the now also first time issued minority report from the Electoral Boundaries Commission. And we left that conversation, for those who haven't caught it, it's on Patreon. I think it's a fantastic conversation that we've had about what's happened, why, the politics behind it, the political strategy that could be present at play behind it. I guess here's my one thought, and it is not novel, but it's potentially clarifying, and you guys may already be there. I am convinced she's going to try to push through the minority report. And we only spent like 5 seconds of this. And to be clear, this is a minority report that was written for those that have not caught up on this file because there's a ton of other stuff going on. And Shannon, you could back clean up for me. But this is a report written by 2 UCP-appointed members of the Boundaries Commission that effectively is an American gerrymandering of Alberta's ridings. And in the majority report, which should be just called the report, it suggests that if this minority report were to be adopted, that it would be unconstitutional, there'd be hugely problematic, it would be the pathway down Americanized gerrymandering for political benefit. All that being said, I feel that this is the reason it exists is that she wants to push it through. Carter, is my panic real and realized, or am I overreacting? And have I just lathered myself up over the weekend about this?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, Mickey Amory was asked about it today, and he said that all options are on the table. Now, there's only supposed to be one option on the table. The majority report is supposed to be the one option on the table, but all options are on the table, according to Mickey Amory. If there's a right and a wrong decision, this is a government that will take the morally wrong decision. That's just the way it goes.
Yet, Shannon, like we talked about it, and I know your answer was like kind of a one-word response because I asked for one word, which is, could they get away with this if they wanted to? And you said yes. And that's stuck with me over the weekend. The reality of the fact that the collective opposition on this thing may be aggressive, but may not outlast the next news cycle. just any lingering thoughts you may have. That's the only reason I bring this up. I don't want to go deep dive into our episode. People can go listen to it. I think it's extremely important. Whether you agree with that the majority or the minority could be adopted on this thing, it could fundamentally remake something in this country if this does go ahead. But I'm just curious if you have any lingering or additional thoughts.
I often pollute my eyeballs on my social media feeds by following the UCP, and I noticed in the last couple of days there's been a ramp up of the judges' discourse coming out of their channels. And because this thing will be slapped down by the courts immediately if they bring in this minority report, it's the gerrymandered report, like let's call it what it is. Yeah. And it's the late stage government interfering in what should be an independent process and putting their stamp in the late hours of the game on it, because none of this was divulged to the public in the October interim report. It all came at the very end. And so it's very clear to me that they always wanted, the fix was always in, but they let go of the process. And then now they're stuck with having to kind of wire it back. And it is very likely they will legislate the minority boundaries. I would be shocked at this point if they didn't. Because why else would you have all those detailed maps in the minority and all the rest of it? And why else would you have a justice minister saying all options are on the table? Unless they take the minority report, tweak it ever so slightly, and then legislate that and try to tell. And that's probably what's taking them longer to study it. Because generally speaking, you receive the report, and then you stand up in the legislature and say, we've received the report, here's the legislation. It's a very straightforward process. It doesn't take long. And so the fact that they are studying it, that they've said that there's options, means that they are going to try to either fuse the two or take most of the minority in order to cheat to get their way in next year's election. And will they get away with it? They will go to war with judges in order to at least win the politics of it.
Is a fight with Ottawa in the courts right now, like, is this good for Danielle Smith? I have one strategy question for each, which is this good for Danielle Smith? She's setting it up with the referendum questions, with the rhetoric, and the positioning with Ottawa. Is this good for her, and can she be successful, is my strategy question for her. And I'll ask the NDP strategy question in a second. So have your swing at this.
Well, it depends on what you're thinking success looks like. I mean, she's probably going to lose in the courts. But that's probably going to lead to a long-term success on her constitutional request to have Alberta appoint their own judges, which Shannon's right. All of a sudden, people are talking more and more about, and they're going to support that constitutional, change, even though it's never going to happen. But
you mean they're going to support it through the referendums in the fall?
Yeah, and it's more and more Albertans aggrieved with Ottawa. And that's the recipe for success for any Alberta government. We've talked a lot about how if you really want to succeed at your one level of government, be angry at the level of government above you. And that's the way this province is treating the federal government. We are angry with that government. They're the reason for all of our problems. And they're not taking accountability for anything. Even though 90% of the problems that we have in Alberta have been written by this government. Or some sort of, or an earlier incarnation of this government. We are the authors of our own demise.
Shannon, talk to me about the strategy for Smith here. Is this good for her to have this battle? And do you agree with Carter that she loses this battle, but she potentially wins the larger one here?
Probably is. Because, you fought with Ottawa for years and years about the carbon tax and about environmental policies and taking action on climate change, right? But now a lot of that has been turned down. And we've got the first couple of pieces of the MOU in place, and we are expecting some kind of agreement that comes to ground around the question of industrial carbon pricing, the functioning credit market, and what happens with investments in both export capacity and pathways. Okay. So if you fought that one to a draw, then you need to have some other reason to fight with Ottawa. Why? Because the separation referendum may not get on the ballot, and even if it does, you're probably looking at a 70-30, or worst case scenario for the Patriots among us, a 60-40. And so she has to move it to other things, both to keep those folks busy, but also look like she's standing up to Ottawa. And so she's chosen the judges thing because it seems to make sense to people on the surface, I guess. And unelected judges, it makes us sound a little vaguely American. It's also something that has its roots in the Reform Party from back in the day. Unelected Senate, unelected judges. It's part of that rhetoric going back, to the 80s at least. So this works for her. And as for the boundaries, that part might work less well, just because it is kind of a stretch, don't you think, for swing voters to look at those maps and go, yeah, this is reasonable? For someone who lives
could be a stretch if they're paying
beside
attention.
the university in Lethbridge to share a riding with the fucking BC border? It's bananas.
It might, but it might, Shannon. The argument against it is that A, are people paying attention, and B, she can probably sell it. She can probably sell it. She can probably sell it. This is my concern, Carter, which is, she's gonna have a good reason. She's gonna have some version, and I'm not gonna say coherent. I'm not gonna say logical. I'm not even gonna say persuasive. It's just gonna be good. And a Danielle Smith good reason is that it sounds good to the ears, and unless you're someone who wants to digest it, process it, split it apart elementally, and then find where it is, wrong, or where it is contradictory, or where it stops making sense, you're in a rarity if you're doing that. For most people, if it sounds reasonable, she does that so well that, like, on the surface, it is. I don't know. We should give it a term, because on the surface, it's like even if you and I are like dozing off, we can just like be like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Like, where's the trick here? I don't see it. Okay, I'm not gonna stop paying attention. Move on. She's gonna do that on this. And so my question then, Carter, is an NDP strategy question, which is, what type of alarm fire is this? How should they be acting? And how should they be acting between this, the referendums, and then the inevitable election? You could argue this is the biggest thing, because if this does not happen, like whatever, but you can also argue that let her do this because the courts will kill it. Preserve your energy, because I'm just throwing out options. I'm not suggesting, I'm just throwing out options for them. How would you treat this? If the three of us are in agreement that she's going to try to push the minority report, how would you be treating this moment?
If I were the NDP, I'd be taking this as a power play, right? This is the opportunity to say, obviously, Danielle Smith is afraid of us. She's gerrymandering the ridings so that she can continue to win. This means that the Alberta NDP is still a force to be reckoned with. There's so many people right now that are saying the Alberta NDP is, where's Nenshi? Where's Nenshi? All these things that they kind of come back to, we're not seeing them the way we want to be seeing them. And now they actually get a proof point that they can be seen to be more effective and more threatening to the UCP than maybe they actually are. So this is actually a proof point that they are doing very well. And if I were the NDP, it wouldn't matter that it's going to be struck down by the courts. I'd be fighting the gerrymander battle for weeks, months. Even after it's been struck down by the courts, we've been saved by a court when we should be saved by morals.
Shannon, what do you think the NDP play here should be? Should be let the courts focus on this. You focus on the election, the cost of living, the stuff that matters. You kind of, I know you don't like the term distraction, but however you position a distraction, you call this that, and you move on to things that people care about? Or do you fight this, meet it where it's at? Do you lean into Carter's strategy to show that this showcases our viability and our strength? Where are you at on this?
I'm not quite sure. My gut tells me that you go straight into it and you spend money on it, because it goes to, like, she is taking away your right to vote, right? And then it is existential for the NDP. Like, I'm sorry, but if this happens, we are looking at a generation, right, of another generation or two of a one-party state. That is the outcome here. But It also is, very bad for other smaller parties as well. I mean, nobody cares about them, but it is just extremely bad for democracy. So, I mean, part of me says, if there is a time to spend money, it might be on Danielle Smith is cheating to take away your right to vote. And there are other arguments on diluting, rural voice into urban seats as well. But I would hope that Labour too would think about third-party campaigns on this. I don't know what people are doing on other things, but holy hell, this is a frontal assault on the concept of competitive democracy and representative democracy too.
Carter, are you spending money, Carter? Are you stopping the steal? Are you bringing in a new campaign brand and try to mobilize people? And I'm tongue in cheek with stop the steal.
I think it's a great slogan. Seems to have worked so far.
Fuck me.
I mean, go for it. This is one of those things that's easy to understand. It's like American style healthcare. People get really nervous when they hear certain phrases, and gerrymandering is one of those phrases that hasn't entered the Canadian lexicon of politics that much. And now it's happening right here in our home, right here in our province, and it's happening under our noses. And it's an opportunity, I think, for the NDP to really define themselves.
I wish we had polling on this, Carter, but I'm curious to the both of you. Do you think an average everyday Albertan knows what gerrymandering is?
I don't know. I'd want to see some polling on that. That's why I use the language like cheat and take it and, take away your right to vote, because I am not at all certain. I mean, I remember learning it, I think, in high school when I learned about the American system, but I don't know if I think it's probably beyond normal people's speech, but, cheating on the boundaries to make your vote not count, that's pretty fucking straightforward.
Carter, what do you think?
I think the people understand gerrymandering.
You think so, hey? Instinct-wise, you think?
I do.
Well, why? Mm-hmm. Just because we're so tuned into America and we're so tuned into their cultural
there's certain cultural touch points.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's a cultural touch point.
It's going to be fascinating to see where that goes. Let's move it on to our next segment, our fine, fabulous, or fucked Stephen Carter, Shannon Phillips. It is back because we are capturing so many things in the federal NDP edition of Fine, Fabulous, and Fucked. For those that are unfamiliar with this framework, here's what we do. We talk about something that happened, a person that made a decision, a party that had a strategy, a person with a message, a tact, a play that they made. And I'm going to ask you if it is fine, fabulous, or fucked, and you're going to tell me why. Stephen Carter, like I say, there's no better way to get started than to get started. The federal NDP have elected Avi Lewis for the party. This is a guy who can fundraise, but he's a guy who also wants moral purity for the party. It's a guy who won with 56% of the vote, first ballot. Is this fine? Is this fabulous? Or is this fucked for the federal NDP?
I think it's fucked, to be honest. I think that I think that it's really hard to imagine someone who wants a more pure NDP than Avi Lewis. And I think that has always been one of the challenges with the right wing or the left wing parties. And that is that you have to be a certain type of person to be admitted to the club. And I'll use the kind of the right wing Reform Party. You needed to be a member of the Reform Party early to be accepted as a member of the Reform Party. Mm-hmm. You needed to be a Preston Manning acolyte. You needed to be someone who really pushed the agenda. And I think that Avi Lewis is the same, but for the left. He's inheriting a party that already, is pretty small, and I think he's going to make it smaller. And for that reason, I think it's fucked.
Shannon, fine, fabulous, or fucked? NDP, Avi Lewis.
I think it is both fine and fucked, and let me elaborate. It is fucked for...
Can't have two. That's bullshit.
Carter.
That's bullshit.
As a person,
it's a very...
followed a single rule.
It is an asterisk of fine with mostly fucked. And here's why. So on the fucked, it is a turning of the page of the party's historic relationship with Labour. in that Labour did not deliver anything in terms of votes for their preferred candidate, and they also lost the executive election. And none of his policy proposals were, at least in the first instance, developed with Labour. There were some huge missteps there. It's fucked for the institutional memory of the party. It is certainly, obviously, I mean, like, obviously the headlines, I don't even need to say it. It's fucked for the federal-provincial relationship that is, I think, sort of an artifact of history at this point anyway. So I don't know how much that fucks the party anymore. There's a couple of ways in which it's fine. And I want to, at least be magnanimous here and be as open-minded as I can be. On housing, groceries, telcos, like our phone bills, those are the three main things that for ordinary people, working class people, that fucks up the affordability equation, right? Your cost of housing, your phone and that kind of and your internet and all that, and your groceries. And in all three cases, I don't think that it is wise to make fun of his policy proposals, because I actually think they're easy to understand. They're easy to communicate. They have antecedents in the United States. He is a good communicator. And both the Liberals and the Conservatives have definite weaknesses on the affordability offer. And it's everybody's number one fucking concern. I mean, sure, Trump blots out the sun now, but affordability is always bubbling there. And the Conservatives are either, subsisting on what my friend Brian Topp calls nursery rhymes and slogans, trinkets, baubles. And the Liberals, their stuff is weedy. It's hard to understand and also really expensive in the case of the essentials and grocery benefit. So there's some stuff there that might actually push both parties to be better on affordability questions. That's if he can get out of his own way and all the other ways that this leadership is fucked, and just communicate with people on their number one issue.
Shannon, I'm going to keep it moving here. You mentioned the Liberals and the Conservatives. Let's pick up on them. For the Liberals, it's Avi Lewis. Is that fine for them? Is that fabulous for them? Or is this fucked for the Liberals?
It's fabulous.
Tell me why.
It's fabulous for them because they have a theory of the case that his views are offside of the mainstream, and that there won't they understand the accessible voter pool, right? They've spent their last decade looking at that accessible voter pool and rating it from the NDP, so they understand those voters very, very well, or at least that's their theory of the case that they do, and they think that this is all a bridge too far. And that it won't get the traction that it needs in the places that it needs.
Carter, do you agree? It's fabulous for the Liberals?
Absolutely, it's fabulous for the Liberals. There's a group of voters that used to go to the NDP that are now available. I was chatting with our good friend Corey Hogan today, and in Calgary Confederation, it makes it a lot easier to win when you're not battling two parties, you're only battling one party. It's going to be a very clear fight. Corey Hogan versus whatever Harper is running against him now. But this is a great opportunity to pick up voters that used to be off running around are now available to be picked up and put into your basket. It's fantastic for them.
And can I ask you in particular this next question, Carter? You can jump in if you want to, but Avi Lewis has more. His whole it's more NDP, right? Like, we're not going to be less NDP. We're going to be more NDP. We're not going to add any water in proverbial wine. How is that different than from Jagmeet Singh last election, where on the core energy file, like, it's not like he was like, I'm diluted NDP. He was still he still had differences with Rachel. He still had differences with the provincial sections, so how do you think this will be functionally different with Avi Lewis? Will it be that he'll interject himself and be like, yes, Alberta, rather than leaving you alone, rather than knowing I'm a liability in that photo with you at that thing we have to do because we share the same name, I'm going to actually be like, fuck you. I'm here. I'm the federal leader. This is what is it going to be that? Give me a sense of and I know I'm breaking format, but I hope for an important sort of observation or conversation, which is, on paper, it doesn't seem all that different. You could argue it doesn't seem all that different. Do you think it's going to be different in the way that Avi Lewis practices federal New Democrat leadership?
It's going to be night and day. And here's why. Well, first of all, I mean, Jagmeet Singh, you would usually take positions like on things like pipeline anyway, as a consequence of having BC seats. Right. And so he had a motivation there. He had a caucus imperative there that he did try.
And a consistent and I think unfounded desire to continue to win Quebec in some way, which he thought he could, but never really realized. Sure.
But honestly, his people still tried to talk to Alberta and Saskatchewan, and those back channels were always there. Right. And they understood that sometimes it was unhelpful for him to like come wandering the landscape. Right. And certainly he wasn't there like with his picket sign at the Hardisty terminal, when TMX opened. Right. So that's the first thing. But the lines of communication were always there. And they both sides took responsibility for that. That is no longer the case at all. So those lines of communication aren't there anymore. But also, if there are individual projects, it's more likely to be happening in BC, maybe even in Manitoba, in Quebec. If there are individual projects that, ENGOs have or other activists have a real problem with, you can bet Avi Lewis will be at the front lines of that. Even if the BC government is largely supportive of that. That will be the difference. Is that he will not ask permission and he will not, back channel any conversations. And he will also not change. You saw him in response to Nahed and to Carla's interventions. He said, well, my door's open. But that doesn't mean that he's going to change anything. It means they have to change.
Carter, do you have anything to add to this around how, like on paper, I could make the argument that the NDP have always had positions that many of the provincial sections have been allergic to, that how will this be functionally different? Shannon gave me, you could debate me on this too, but on energy, let's just use energy. Like, it's not like Jagmeet Singh was like Heather McPherson being like, let's fucking develop. Like, he wasn't acting like an Alberta New Democrat. He wasn't saying Rachel Notley lines. He had his own opinions, and Shannon, as rightfully said, that the BC caucus was part of that. How do you see this as being functionally different?
I mean, first of all, no two leaders are the same.
Okay.
To begin with. No two leaders are the same. And there could be an argument that no leader that has preceded Avi Lewis is like Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis doesn't wish to lead. He wishes to be followed. And I think that that's a very different type of thing. He sees himself as the true keeper of the church. This is the true church, and if you're not a member of the true church, you're not going to succeed. Jagmeet Singh, for all his failings, and let's be clear, he didn't ever gain more seats in an election. He always lost, but he was trying to gain seats. Avi Lewis doesn't want to sit in the House. Avi Lewis wants to play by his own rules. Avi Lewis isn't helping Naheed Nenshi become elected premier of the province of Alberta.
He's utterly committed to it. He said that.
He's utterly committed to it. He's not helping. He's not helping. If he was helping, there were things that he could have said to bring things together. Instead, he makes it sound like I want him to be premier on my terms. On my terms. No, that's what I'm interested in. That's Avi Lewis. That's not Jagmeet Singh.
Let me preview to you what's coming up. I talked to you about the Liberals on the Fine, Fabulous. In fact, I want to talk about the Conservatives. I want to talk about Avi Lewis's sort of movement politics as well. But can I ask you this, Shannon? As it comes to Lewis, when you think of his overall sort of like framework of leadership, when you think of what that means, many people have said that he's running to essentially have the purest version of the party, not necessarily win, not necessarily try to win a seat, not even run for a seat in Beaches. Do you feel like him not running right out of the gate is a sign that he knows that he cannot win and that he would still birth his version of leadership if he runs and loses in a by-election? Just on that very critical next step for him electorally, I would just love to get your quick thoughts before I kind of move on to the Liberals and Nenshi and Beck and EB and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, first of all, like there is the matter that I'm not sure if the party could afford a great big campaign right now, like regardless of who it was, right? So, like to be fair to Avi and his calculation. Having said that, that's the whole problem with this is that I can't find the voter efficiency for this project. Like
You'd
that.
think it'd have to happen in beaches. I know you lost it by 30,000
I mean, ideally,
votes.
you
I get that.
have enough
But, like,
seats to be official party status, and I'm having a hard time finding the path to 12 with these ideas.
Carter, talk to me about the importance of Avi Lewis getting a seat. Overrated or underrated in that sense, like right now, immediately?
I mean, immediately is probably underrated. He needs to be in the House if he's going to get attention. He's going to get attention for 3 days more, probably, and then everybody will move back into the House and the orbit of Mark Carney. And what Mark Carney says is going to drive, response. And the Bloc Québécois will be able to respond. The Conservatives, of course, will be able to respond. And even the Green Party will be able to respond on some level because they're there. And reporters will be able to find them. And they'll be able to stand in front of a reporter. Avi Lewis is going to be, wearing his visitor badge and hoping for the best if he's in Ottawa.
Honestly, Jack did that for a long time. But there were two differences here.
Jack lost for a long time.
There were two differences. Number one,
about those,
Avi said straight off the top, I'm not running. Right? Like he didn't just kind of rag it out and say, oh, I'll look at it or, we'll have to see. No, he said, I'm not. Right. And so the media are immediately going to pounce on that and they're going to make an issue out of that. Right. Because the party is not as viable as it used to be. Number two, Jack used to go and hang around in the lobby and scrum. And oftentimes he would get media attention because he was affable and interesting and they were working their relationships. Look at the last 24 hours since Lewis won. There's footage online of him in his rally in front of his supporters after he won, complaining about Rosemary Barton. He's complaining about media coverage when he goes on The Current this morning. I've seen him do it in interview after interview where he kind of gets chippy, right? So you have kind of three leaders now who don't mind getting chippy with the media. And maybe it doesn't matter, but I will tell you when you're trying to get their attention, being a dick to them is probably not your straight shot to good coverage.
Especially when they don't owe it to you. Especially when they really don't owe it to you as the fourth place.
Really
party.
don't.
Okay, let's talk about the Conservatives. And before I talk about what
they're not even a party in the House.
Fair.
Right? They're not the fourth place
There was
party.
a disproportionate amount of
MLA,
coverage offered to the federal NDP this weekend, primarily based on history and fumes. Right? Like this was not a party that deserved the type of coverage it got this weekend. Coast to coast, nationwide television, radio, like just based on pure political where they stand. I get it. But there is something there. Carter, speaking of there, fine, fabulous, or fucked. This Zain Velji analogy. I gave this analogy over the weekend, and I'm not sure if it actually fits. But I want you to test it out for me. And it's about the Conservatives. And I'll ask you the direct question about what this means for the Conservatives in a second. But
sure,
Avi Lewis is following the Pierre Poilievre path. Fuck the dilution. We want purity. You get purity. You win on your own terms. Strict message discipline. Right? In addition to that, and fighting your own people is actually a sign of that authenticity. Telling these people to go fuck themselves, the Alberta section, and like all these other folks being like, you guys, fuck you. Like, this is how we're doing it. As a shortcut for Canadians, even though the electoral outcomes may be fundamentally different and that trajectory might look fundamentally different, is this what Avi Lewis is doing? Like, fine, fabulous, or fucked in terms of this comparison that is kind of being made. And I'm not asking for me. I'm just asking that, is this a fair comparison to make around what each of these gents is trying to do with their institution?
It's fine. It's fine. But the difference is that Pierre Poilievre came into power when, like, at the time, the most disliked prime minister was in power, right? You could get away with that because you were contrasting with this hated Trudeau, especially amongst your supporters.
Really good point. So any type of conservative, like, even if it meant we have to like stomach this type of guy, fuck it. At least it's better than Trudeau.
And the proof is in the pudding after we get a Carney.
Yeah.
Right? We
Yeah.
get Carney and all of a sudden everything switches. Now, Carney's past his honeymoon phase. He's a year in and he's still riding high compared to Pierre Poilievre. Why? Because Pierre Poilievre was combative and pushed off a bunch of conservatives. There's a lot of conservatives, and I found this in Manitoba. There's a lot of conservatives who aren't conservatives anymore, that are just trying to find a place to live. That's an interesting scenario for Pierre Poilievre because he's turned them off. And Avi Lewis doesn't start in the high 20s, in the high 30, over 30% of the people who like him. Avi Lewis is starting in the low 10s. He very easily could fall into single digit category if he's not already there.
And fine, fabulous for fuck this comparison between Lewis and Poilievre.
I think it's fine. I mean, with the obvious caveats that there are differences, big ones, between left and right populism, and right populism being of the quite egregious kind that blames poor people and immigrants for your problems when the problems are obviously to be blamed somewhere else. But I think it's correct in its tone and its affect. And it also may be correct as an analogy, as a way to get attention in this attention economy. The clarity, in particular, right? Like there's no marbles in the mouth on this one at all for either of them, right? You know exactly what you're getting. Whereas with the Liberals, things are this and they're also that, and maybe there's a tax credit, right? G7 economy. But meanwhile, you have, we're going to lower your rent. Okay. Produced in very accessible terms by a filmmaker who knows how to communicate things. So in that sense, he might be better off in some ways because he's then speaking to the progressive majority in this country, which is a thing that exists. And he's not necessarily speaking to the slivers that Poilievre is, trying to cobble together back the PPC and all these people that, hold views that are offside, are extremely offside the mainstream. Avi walks in to a situation where he has many advantages, where Canadians largely agree with him on a lot of things.
Okay, I appreciate that. Shannon, can I stick with you? Fine, fabulous, or fucked for the Conservatives? It's Avi Lewis. Where does that put them? Does that put them in the fine category? Does that put them in the fabulous category like the Liberals? Or is this kind of fucked for them?
I think they're going to believe it's fine, and it's not. I think he's going after the same voter pool in many ways that Poilievre is. He's not going after, public health care boomers. Avi Lewis isn't. That's not who he's, people who broadly want the status quo, right? Carney's got those people sewed up. And those kind of progressives are not probably the target audience for Mr. Lewis. The target audience is the same voter pool that Poilievre wants.
That's interesting. See, I thought I end up in the same spot. Carter, I'll come to you in a second, but let me just respond to Shannon very quickly. I end up with fucked as well. Mainly because I think he's going to be so weak and not be able to grow the share away from Carney that is going to not split and take anything away from Carney in some of those orange-red splits, that Carney is going to keep all those folks, that Blue will inevitably lose out. So I end up in the same reason, but I like your rationale of the Trump-Bernie effect, if I can call it that, right? In some way.
That's kind of what I'm going at. Like I'm trying to do the best case scenario for Mr. Lewis. Right. And believe me, I am the literal last person in the 40 million Canadians to want to give this man the benefit of the doubt. Really, I am. No.
I've heard you are a proof point in many ways in national media.
Yes, in all the coverage.
Yes, I've heard.
But let me say this, that these clear solutions in this attentional moment are the most likely to break through, just as they did when Poilievre made them break through.
Fair point. Fine, fabulous, or fucked for the Conservatives that it's Avi Lewis?
I think it's fabulous.
I
think that the Conservatives can pick up a whole bunch of, I think for the exact same reason that it's fabulous for the Liberals. There are new voters in the pool and you can go and get those voters. People who've been lifelong New Democrats are going to be saying, I was a lifelong New Democrat, or I'm a Manitoba New Democrat, or I'm an Alberta New Democrat, or I'm a Saskatchewan New Democrat, but I am not an Avi Lewis Democrat. And that means that there's a bunch of blue-orange switch that's now available. And Shannon's right about one thing, just one thing, and that is that there is a big blue-orange switch, and some of it's gone to red, right? Some of it's moved to the Liberals, but now the Conservatives have an opportunity to go back and get their fair share of this particular pie.
Hold on. Let me check the till here. You're saying that this is fabulous for the Conservatives because they now, because of a weak New Democrat Party, they can pick up the orange-blue. But don't you think a weak New Democrat that doesn't actually have a orange-red, like active orange-red in multiple ridings electorally, don't you think that hurts them more than the opportunity to have half a dozen, let's just call it like, orange-blue?
Are you going with the idea of vote split again?
Oh my fucking
here we
God.
go.
You know
Yes.
I hate vote split.
All right.
Yeah, you hate it. You hate it, but now you at least with the comment where you say you hate it, you imply that it is real, which
I
is
hate the
progress
term
for you.
vote split.
Which is progress for you.
Vote
Stephen
split is a silly thing to talk about.
Make no mistake.
This is an opportunity to go and win voters. End of sentence. The two parties that benefit from this
I knew
are the
this was gonna
Conservatives and the
head in
Liberals.
this
The
fucking
party that is
cul-de-sac.
fucked by this is the New Democratic Party. Boom.
This has been a Stephen Carter truth bomb.
I think that the Conservatives would rather have a strong NDP on balance, right? And so right now they don't have that. And so, but I'm just saying that some of the things where like that old math for the Conservatives meant that the New Democrats and the Liberals were trading votes in sort of, like a higher education, boomer voters, sort of middle of the roaders. That is going to happen less, I think, with Mr. Lewis. But what could also happen is that some of those accessible young voters, insofar as they vote at all, are more likely to be reached in this particular moment by Mr. Lewis's messages than they are Mr. Carney's messages, right? Or even potentially Mr. Poilievre's, although they can buy their eyeballs. So I do think there's a shifting, like who's voting for who thing happening. And it could be that Mr. Lewis is actually problematic for them, but not for the reasons that they think. And I also think that it is a mistake to go at him as, I mean, they'll probably do the, like eco-radical thing in Alberta. That's fine for them. But I think it's a mistake to go too much on that for Conservatives, for young voters, because I think that's what young voters are looking for. Somebody to burn it all down.
Now, I am to blame. I am the one that is broken for him. I'm gonna power through the next number of folks and their strategies very quickly, Carter. Not to say we have to be quick on it, but I want to try to keep it relatively swift. Nahid Nenshi, first out of the gate, releases an Alberta-focused energy plan, including expanding Trans Mountain. Used Lewis to underline key differences. Formally, has decoupled already the Alberta membership with the federal party membership. The suite of things, but more importantly, what he did immediately thereon after being first and getting out, just as Avi Lewis was getting off that stage. He may not even actually have been off that stage, finishing his victory speech when he was out. Fine, fabulous, or fucked? The Nenshi response.
Fucked. He didn't go as far as he needed to go. He put out his own ideas and all of that, but at the end of the day, he did not say what needs to be said, and that is, the Alberta New Democrats are now going to be the Alberta New Democrats. We are not going to be formally part of the federal New Democratic Party.
Shannon, fine, fabulous, or fuck, the Nenshi response. I've got a follow-up on Nenshi, which includes, I believe, Carter's name thing, because Nahid gave him comments today on the name and where he stands on that. So let's just answer his first initial response, and then let's get to the name. Shannon?
I thought it was fabulous. I mean, he went as far as he could go in that moment. Because every time that you're talking about Avi Lewis is the time that you're not talking about, Daniel Smith being a separatist or fucking up the healthcare system. And so he's better off to just he was right to go first. And the tone of it was correct. And leaving it open, I think, is exactly because it's not up to him; it's up to the members on the naming. So,
Shannon, I'll stick with you. Fine, fabulous, reflect Nenshi today saying, and listen, I think paraphrasing Nenshi here, being like, people are smart enough. Yes, we've got differences. People are smart enough. We name change still not off the table, but also not on the table. Like, I think they're smart enough to differentiate that we are an alternative to the UCP. That is what we are. We are an alternative to the UCP government in waiting. Fine, fabulous, reflect on the name change follow-up that was asked to him today.
I think it's fine. I do think that he's probably going to have to be clear on what kinds of changes might be contemplated, because there are options. It's just that those options take bandwidth, right? Like, stuff is zero sum. And if you're focused on, making a special convention and doing a constitutional change, then you're not focused on getting ready for the next election and telling people how Danielle Smith is fucking up the province. So,
Carter, his follow-up on the name change, fine, fabulous, or fuck today.
Fucked. It's weak. It's limp. Just limp leadership. It doesn't have the strength that we're looking for someone who's going to beat Danielle Smith. He's got to beat Danielle. He can't just be piece of wet noodle just flopping over all the time.
Well, finish this sort of like part of the conversation for me, which is that I think Shannon makes a really good point around zero sum, like in terms of time, in terms of bandwidth and capacity. Yeah. Do you believe that spending time on a name change comes with its electoral upside? Right? Because I'd also acknowledge, look at that insane experiment with BC United, right? Like, but I'm kind of curious, like in this moment, knowing what happened with BC United, knowing what's happened with name changes, bringing that question back to the fold, like, do you think them spending time on a special meeting to do X, Y, and Z and having a name change will give them electoral outcomes? That's what I'm trying to say. Is this a proxy for that, Carter? Like, to show strong leadership? Or do you think a name change will actually give them something?
I don't think you need to formally change anything. You don't need to change the name. You don't have to go through a constitutional process. You just need to say we are no longer the Alberta New Democrats, part of the Avi Lewis party. We are now the Alberta New Democrats. Drop the New Democratic Party. This has been done in the past. It was the New Democrats under Pam. Was it Pam Barrett?
Yes.
This has been done before. This isn't something that needs to be radically different. It just needs to be thought of in a different way where you're going to say, we are not Avi Lewis's bitch, period. And Avi Lewis is going to say, you are. And that's where we're going to have the fun.
Does fighting with Avi Lewis give any of these two upside? Does it give Avi Lewis upside? Does it give Naheed Nenshi upside? Fighting with Avi Lewis publicly, Shannon?
It gives Naheed a little bit because it defines who the party is. And it takes away a doubt about you, right? James Carville always says that the worst thing you can do in politics is hand your opponent some doubts about you so they can go talk about them. And what this does is it takes away, for swing voters, it does take away a doubt about who the party is and what it stands for. Not in Edmonton, although for some ridings probably it does, but certainly that is the case in Calgary and elsewhere. And, I've had those conversations for years and years with my colleagues. And, some people in safer ridings would, sort of attempt to gaslight me that it wasn't happening, that, people weren't raising it on the doorsteps, that it wasn't an effective attack on us. It absolutely is. And so the fact that he has changed, the caucus name to Alberta's New Democrats, he's changed the branding, all of that's all to the good. He may have to even go further and say, well, we will call a special meeting and or he will just, punt it to after the election and run on it. He could do that, right? There's a number of different strategies that he could undertake. He could say, we don't have a convention until after the next election, but at our next convention, we'll bring the appropriate motions and all that. He could do that.
Carter, can I ask you about David Eby? Fine, fabulous, or fuck.
Sure.
So he also puts out a tweet thread in his case. Congratulations to Avi Lewis. Stressed the importance of the work that his government is doing, David Eby being in government, growing jobs in mining, energy, and tech. And they'll work with anyone and any federal leader who shares those priorities and will stand firm against those who put that progress at risk. So owning that term of progress with those suite of projects, not letting progress be defined by something else, also expanding the frame to any leader. He will be work with and oppose any leader, brand agnostic to that point, clearly sending a message. The EB
Clearly
response,
enough.
fine, fabulous, or fucked.
Fuck, because it wasn't clear enough.
You
Right?
want something
God,
to
give
happen.
me a fucking leader with a backbone. God, give me someone who's going to stand up and say what he really means, which is, Avi Lewis, if you fuck with me, I am gone.
Okay, fine. So let me
That's what he fucking should have said. That's what he fucking should have said.
Shannon, take a break for a second. Carter, did Carla Beck do it for you, Stephen Carter?
She got the absolute closest, and you know what?
Okay, so let me
damn
just
right
explain-
she did.
let-
She has a little bit of steel in her fucking spine.
Sent a
Way
letter,
to go, Carla fucking Beck.
So she did PDF form, called everything that a lot of things what he believed idealistic and unrealistic, not everything. Fossil fuel stance would hurt Saskatchewan workers, threaten billions in economic activity, and then ended with, "I'll only talk to you if you fucking change your mind on these things." It was fine, fabulous, or fucked, Carter.
Fabulous. The best of the bunch. Way to go, Carla.
I will ask you the dual question. EB with that tweet thread, and Lewis and Lewis, I was saying, and Beck in Saskatchewan, the opposition leader, the NDP opposition leader, sending that letter to Avi Lewis, and of course publishing that letter for all of our eyeballs. Give me your take on both of them. Fine, fabulous, or fucked.
Oh, fabulous. I mean, well, Beck's was fabulous.
EB's?
Eby's was as predicted, a lot more restrained because he has to be, right? This does not divide Carla Beck's caucus, but it does in some ways divide Eby's. And so Carla was very, very smart to get out in front of it. I mean, the thing I've said back to some people who have wondered aloud about this to me, about Nenshi and Beck's responses is, imagine what Smith and Moe would have done had they not done this. Like, think that scenario through. Like, even Danielle Smith had to hedge in her little, Naheed Nenshi tries to distance himself, right? Like, she's even there. They have to, like, even those lying liars who lie have to hold on to some kernel of, like, the attack has to be in some way authentic or true. And when you take it away from them, you can much easier pivot to the issues of the day and get back onto things that are actually good for us to win government in both those provinces.
Shannon, can I stick with you and move on to Wab Kinew? There was a time where Michael Jordan was so good at basketball that he started shooting some free throws with his eyes closed just to give himself a challenge. Is that what the hell is happening with Wab Kinew? Because where everyone zigs, this motherfucker just sags. He obviously, he's in Manitoba. He gives I think, a good but rousing speech about foreign affairs in America and the Epstein class. So he throws that out on the table. And then he shows up with Avi Lewis when he wins on stage, gives him a hug, like raises his hand. In the presser afterwards, I just love this guy. Casts him as a unifying values-aligned leader, acknowledging that he doesn't agree with him on everything. The Wab Kinew response might only be something Wab Kinew can get away with based on who Wab Kinew is, and not just because of his political superpowers, which I believe he has. Stephen Carter, good luck in Manitoba, but also based on Manitoba being slightly different than Saskatchewan and Alberta, like acknowledging that key difference. But fine, fabulous, or fucked with Wab Kinew and how he definitely zigged when everyone else sagged in terms of the provincial sections this week.
It's fine because he can. I mean, you'll notice in Avi Lewis's press conference this morning, he returned the favor by saying that he might have to oppose the expansion of the Port of Churchill.
Churchill. Yeah, I saw that. This motherfucker is also like, he's like, thank you, my best friend and my 20-year family
I'll
history.
be outside with a picket sign. Yeah. So, no, Wab can get away with it, clearly. But
to that point though, to be honest for a second, can he get away with it? Like, as much as like I'm heaping praise on him, at some point, like, you can fly too close to the sun and it can cost you. Like, Carter is a talented operative. The Manitoba PCs are a political party. It's not like they don't exist and not like they're not waiting to do something. Like, can he fly too close to the sun with this particular thing in the federal NDP?
it wouldn't be this that took him down. It wouldn't be this that chipped away at his armor, right? I don't think.
Carter, tell me exactly how you're weaponizing this, both in your mind and over multiple conference calls this weekend.
This is just fabulous for me. It makes me very happy. I am over the moon that he has decided to associate himself with Avi Lewis as closely as he has, giving himself the minor caveat, the minor, we don't have to agree on everything. Tell me what you agree on, Wab. Tell me what you agree on, because I'll tell you, there's a briefing binder full of shit that Avi Lewis has said that I'm now, we're pulling it all together. It's all very exciting for the Manitoba PCs.
I've never seen you with so much joy in your life, Stephen Carter.
This brings me great comfort. And to Shannon's point, this isn't the thing that undermines him, right? It's not, I support Avi Lewis. It's about what Avi Lewis supports. It's about who Avi Lewis is and what he's been pushing for. And that is different than what people of Manitoba want, because you have to put everything in the terms of what the people of Manitoba want. Otherwise, you go nowhere. And that's where I'm excited, because I think that this is going to be a point where Wab Kinew loses a little bit of his luster. And that's all we can ask for at this moment when you're polling at 70%, approval. Going down to 65 is still going down.
Yeah, let me end on this, and let me focus back on, let's keep it close to home with Nenshi and Beck. Is there a strategic case to be made that they went too aggressively too quickly? I know Carter would disagree, but in the sense of escalating to something, in terms of bringing people along, in terms of moving things more iteratively, is there a case to be made, and do you buy it, by extension of saying that they could have gone a little bit more piecemeal with their distancing, or did they have to go this quickly, this aggressively, this soon?
They had to, because there was no ability to have the back channel conversation in a way that Mr. Lewis would actually make good on his word that he didn't want to become a liability, right? His idea of not becoming a liability.
That Barton interview, right away, that does not help Nenshi. That's an attack ad going to be made.
100% it is. But also his idea of quote unquote not getting in their way is not changing anything about his tone or affect or presentation on these issues, or doing anything to go, okay, we may have had misunderstandings in the past and I'm sorry for that, but we're going to turn the page because I'm going to be a leader now. Right. We've seen none of that. And honestly, you probably would have had a different outcome if some of that had happened behind the scenes in some of those conversations. And if there had been back channel conversations between senior staff and senior leadership people. Right. Which I don't think those channels exist. And they always existed in the Singh days. Right. For better or for worse, they always existed. So they did exactly what they had to do, because, I mean, honestly, imagine the feeding frenzy had they done nothing or hesitated or waited or watered it down. It would have been, they have taken an arrow out of their fairly vicious conservative opponent's quiver. For sure they have. For more, Carla Beck will be on Balance of Power tomorrow.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's
Nice.
a great get. We would never have guests on the show, but that's a great get for you guys.
I mean, if you were interested in guests, that would be a good guest.
I've never been interested in guests. Stephen Carter, final question to you. And I'll let Shannon weigh in on this as well. Based on everything you saw this weekend, between Kinew, Beck, EB, Nenshi, who should be the leader that takes the next step first? So define what next step looks like based on this first response. And who should do that first? Who needs to do it first? I doubt it's going to be Wab, just based on everything we've heard. So maybe let's put him out of the equation. But who knows? Maybe Wab Kinew's the first to say, after the Churchill comments, that I no longer believe in the federal NDP. That'd be fun. That'd be like shooting with your eyes closed and left-handed. He could probably get away with that too. But who should be the first to move on to step 2 in the distance yourself from Avi Lewis plan, Carter?
I think that Carla Beck did a better job of doing it on the first run, so I don't think it needs to be her. I think that Shannon points out that the David Eby caucus is a little bit more difficult to manage, and he is in government which makes it a little bit more challenging. So it has to be Nenshi. It has to be Nenshi. Nenshi has to say, because this is the most egregious to Alberta. The Alberta NDP comments on the socials and things like that are the ones that are the most outraged. And I think that this is the opportunity that Nenshi needs to really solidify his own leadership as well and not live in the shadow of Avi Lewis or anybody else.
Shannon, I'll let you answer that same question, but I want to pick your brain on, is every action comes with a reaction and consequences. Do you think there are like sizable downsides here in terms of people Nenshi might alienate, in terms of resources that might not come his way from the federal party, in terms of generally people showing up for your election and such, like all the stuff that the NDP comes with? Is there a risk to what Nenshi's doing here? And then talk to me about who needs to take step 2 first.
So this whole idea that the federal party somehow helps us during the provincial campaign is hilarious to me.
That's hilarious.
Like, no, that's not a real thing.
Talk to me about that.
There's no data sharing. There's nothing. Like, we severed our relationship here in Lethbridge West with anything to do with the federal party in 2014. And at no point did that even matter or come up, or like I haven't really thought about it since. Like it's not, that's not a thing. Other provincial sections and through the people who work through the labor movement, work in other provincial sections. Yes, those relationships matter for when it comes time to staff up a war room and staff up all the individual campaigns. But those relationships exist entirely apart from the federal party, or at least they have in my case. Some of those people I met through work, because I worked for Jack back in 2004, right? And I've met through federal campaigns, but I've also met equal number or more through working in the labor movement and working in other provincial campaigns. So that's not an issue. That's not a real thing. Either the people or these mythical resources that are just like a complete joke. There are some downsides with some elements of the base in Edmonton. But again, I mean, if somebody wins with 65% of the vote as opposed to 70, I don't see that the real vigor in the base comes from people who care that much about the federal party, especially to the extent that Avi Lewis is asking them to. Certainly, in my experience in Calgary and Lethbridge, it doesn't matter at all. And I'll even throw Medicine Hat in there. When you talk to activists on the ground in these smaller areas or places that are harder to win, like, it's not ideological. It's not, I don't like the federal party because they're too left wing. It's, I don't like the federal party because they get in my way, right? Like, I have some of my most left wing members and activists down here were like, no, get this stuff out of the way. Right? This is a distraction. Because the federal government is so far away from people and matters so much less existentially, right, to people who are, working in healthcare, education, queer people, what have you, that they just don't fucking care, right? And they just want all of that noise to get out of the way so that they can focus on the real task, which is beating Jason Kenney or Danielle Smith or whatever the case may be.
Shannon, I'll end with you. Who's the next person that needs to make the next move? Should it be Nenshi, Beck, Eby, or Kinew?
It probably has to be Nenshi.
What do you think it needs to be?
There might have to be some sort of, punt it to a review or something, or, I mean, he could do also some stuff that's like, we're withholding lists or things like that. I think we'd do that anyway. But if that hasn't been done, then that should be done. And you might want to tell the public that you're doing it, right? Like that all ties of any kind are severed.
Do you think there'd be any issue now that it's Lewis within folks from the party, whether it's from the Rachel Notley era or the people who've been there even before then, building this movement when it was smaller, around some of the moves, or does Nenshi have like frictionless pathway to do these things now?
Mostly frictionless, I would say.
I mean, he won the leadership by how much again, Shannon? 2 million percent?
Exactly.
2 million%.
But
I mean, there is something to be said about Nenshi at 60,000 votes in a province where Lewis has 40,000 in a country. Like, I think, I mean,
Exactly.
I'm not going to overinflate that.
No, but seriously.
There's a there.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, Zane, all of those Notley people, they just worked on Heather McPherson's campaign and they're out on a nice flow
Campaign.
too.
Oh, I mean, we could do a whole episode about what Heather does next, but we will leave it there. That is a wrap on episode 4022 of The Strategist. My name is Zain Velji. With me, as always, Shannon Phillips, and from the Epstein class, Stephen Carter. And we shall see you next time.